brother! Why can't anyone ever piece together why Dumbledore trusts Snape, or at least that Snape had a crush on Lily? And by crush, I of course mean was obsessively in love with her for basically his entire life. Toxic? Yes. Yeah, not really up for debate. But they seem to be pretty good friends at school, at least for the first few years. McGonagall would have observed them as students, and Remus, Sirius, and Peter would have had a front row seat to a ton of their interactions, as would many of the Slytherins like Avery and Mulciber. Given their future Death Eater status, you'd think that they'd take great notice and have a big problem with their fellow Slytherins spending time with, you know, Muggle-born Gryffindors. After all, Voldemort literally gives Bellatrix and Narcissa crap at Malfoy Manor because their sister's daughter married a werewolf, also known as niece, but somehow bestowing auntie status to Bellatrix via Tonks seems wrong. But no, apparently Snape's love for Lily is so unobvious to everyone else in the entire wizarding world that it ends up being the secret that upends Voldemort's entire regime. Along with, you know, Harry sacrificing himself and stuff. That was pretty cool too. But how can this be? How can nobody have realized that Snape was in love with Lily? Even Harry can't figure it out, and he literally goes inside Snape's memory and sees Lily stand up to the Marauders on behalf of Snape. I mean, not that anyone's ever accused Harry of being great with girls or anything.
I just wondered if maybe you want to go to the ball with me. You know, she's got nice skin.
Open up, you.
But we recently got a comment from viewer Luke Robertson 2115 who had a very interesting idea about why nobody can piece together this apparently super complicated puzzle. Here's the question. What if the secret is literally magically hidden by the Fidelius Charm so that it's impossible for anyone to find out unless they are told? And the more I thought about this, the more it started to make sense. I mean, if nothing else, it means characters like Lupin and Sirius weren't stupid, they were just magically locked out of the information, incapable of finding the correct conclusion. Peter, on the other hand, is still stupid. Ha! Sucks to suck.
Pathetic, isn't he?
But I did have one small issue. Luke suggests that it was Snape who was his own secret keeper, but the more I've dived down this rabbit hole, the more I am convinced that it was in fact Dumbledore. So today we are going to weave in and out of the complexities of the Fidelius Charm to find out if it all adds up and if Dumbledore was Snape's secret keeper. Hey, brother! Okay, so the first thing I did when examining this theory from Luke was determining if you could even be your own secret keeper and if the Fidelius Charm could be used in this way. Usually we see the charm in action to protect the location of places, like Lily and James use Peter as their secret keeper to protect the location of their house in Godric's Hollow. Of course, he turns around and tells Voldemort, like, right away, so that was a pretty bad choice. But could you use it to conceal other kinds of secrets? And yes, you absolutely can, according to Flitwick in Prisoner of Azkaban. An immensely complex spell, he said squeakily, involving the magical concealment of a secret inside a single living soul. The information is hidden inside the chosen person, or secret keeper, and is henceforth impossible to find, unless of course the secret keeper chooses to divulge it. Yes, I have been working on my Flitwick, thank you!
Oh, well done!
But there you go, it doesn't have to be a location, it just has to be a secret. Now, sadly, we don't have any other examples in the books of people using it in non-location-based ways, although there is a really good argument that sorting via the sorting hat is also protected the same way, hence how Ron, the sixth child of a pure-blood family, doesn't know how the sorting works. And I hear you, Harry talks to Albus about sorting in the epilogue, but also Voldemort lights the hat on fire on Neville's head, destroying the protection sorted within. Okay, we thought of everything! Right? That said, the in-universe examples that we know about are the Potters, Grimmauld Place, Aunt Muriel's, and Shell Cottage. But it feels clear to me that other kinds of information, like your secret undying love for someone, could be concealed. In this case, almost as it should be, because she married someone else and then died. But the Shell Cottage example also answers our other question if you can be your own secret keeper, because Bill lives there and is also secret keeper, so yes! Now, that said, the Fidelius Charm can't be used for, like, mass brainwashing or anything either. You couldn't be like, hey, conceal inside of me the secret that the sky is blue, and then suddenly nobody knows unless you tell them. What a good prank. Really messes with meteorology.
You may have seen a meteor shower, but you've never seen a shower meteor than this.
Point is, that's not a secret. That's just information. The hiding place of the Potters is a secret. The location of the Order of the Phoenix is a secret. That Snape loves Lily is a secret, and specifically his secret, which makes it a good candidate for this particular spell. But y'all, we gotta take a brief pause right there to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Y'all, we are amidst the holiday season, and if ever there was a time when traditions seemed to be pouring from the woodwork, it's now. In fact, the very day that this episode went live is the day that we head to our parents' house for what we call 1205 Day, where we decorate the Christmas tree. But traditions are funny, aren't they? Like, some we've been doing for so long, no one seems to remember when it started. Others, like this one that we do, have a clear start point. Our dad proposed to our mom while decorating their tree together. And while I love this tradition, I know that this time of year can also be stressful or even hard. So a new tradition to consider is taking some quality time for yourself or trying out therapy. I remember first starting therapy myself because I was going through a breakup. I figured it would help me get through the hard parts, but what I didn't expect is for it to become a regular part of my own life. It turns out having guidance from someone who is licensed to help you can solve more than just one problem. So this December, start a new tradition by taking care of you, and our listeners get 10% off at betterhelp.com/super. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/super. Link in the description down below. And now back to the video. So if you can be your own secret keeper and Snape doesn't want people to know, why do I think it's Dumbledore? Well, because he straight up asks him. Very well, but never, never tell, Dumbledore. This must be between us. Swear it, I cannot bear, especially Potter's son. I won't show a word. My word, Severus, that I shall never reveal the best of you, Dumbledore sighed, looking down at Snape's ferocious, anguished face. If you insist. He literally makes Dumbledore swear to never reveal this secret, and it may sound like a simple request of trust, but in the wizarding world, and especially with these people surrounding this circumstance, secrets take on a whole new meaning. In fact, prior to Snape saying that, by which I mean earlier in that exact conversation, Dumbledore tells him, Lily and James put their faith in the wrong person, said Dumbledore. Rather like you, Severus. Weren't you hoping that Lord Voldemort would spare her? Snape's breathing was shallow. Dumbledore tells him that he puts his faith in the wrong person, suggesting that he should instead put his faith in Dumbledore. Snape agrees, but insists on a show of faith from Dumbledore. Prove to me that I am not putting my faith in the wrong person by being my secret keeper. Dumbledore agrees, but it forever puts him in an awkward position. He must now show an unshakable trust in Snape without ever being able to produce a good reason why, simply that everyone should share the same unshakable faith in Dumbledore. Dumbledore, why do you trust Snape so? Because I do. And you, my good buddy, my good pal, you trust me, right? There's a lot of, right? Okay, I guess so. Wizard Lord! But do you see what I mean? If he gives up the secret, and you can tell that there are times when he sorely is tempted, he will lose Snape's trust entirely, proving that Snape has once more put his faith in the wrong man. Okay, so it happens, Dumbledore becomes the secret keeper. What effect does it then have, and does the rest of the story follow all the complicated rules? What it would mainly mean for the rest of the characters is that they can now not figure out on their own that Snape was in love with Lily. They can't even accidentally learn about it. And what I mean by that is, like, when Harry first reads the note from Dumbledore about the location of Grimmauld Place, even though he then has the information, the house doesn't appear until he really grasps it. But Wes, think about what you've just memorized, said Lupin quietly. Harry thought, and no sooner had he reached the part about number 12, Grimmauld Place, than a battered door emerged out of nowhere between numbers 11 and 13. This explains why literally nobody is ever able to piece together what feels like a guessable secret, even though everyone is wondering about it. Even McGonagall says that Dumbledore always hinted that he had an ironclad reason for trusting Snape, which is true, but it reveals that even she was suspicious of Snape. Payoff that we all had to wait 7 books to get. But it did feel good when you finally got there. You're like, okay, she was in it too. Good old McG. Lupin and Sirius are probably the most guilty of not realizing the truth, and when asked about it, they even say, James and Snape hated each other from the moment they set eyes on each other. It was just one of those things. You can understand that, can't you? I think James was everything Snape wanted to be. He was popular, he was good at Quidditch, good at pretty much everything, and Snape was just this little oddball who was up to his eyes in the dark arts. To them, it's all about Snape's jealousy of James, not the attention of Lily. But how could they not notice? By mutual agreement between Lily and Snape, they are best friends, even though Lily is starting to be concerned with who Snape is hanging out with. Then in year 5 is when he calls her a mudblood, and she officially breaks off the friendship. But listen to how it goes down. I only came out here because Mary told me you were threatening to sleep here. I would have done. I never meant to call you mudblood, it just slipped out. There was no pity in Lily's voice. It's too late. I've made excuses for you for years. None of my friends can understand why I even talked to you. Snape was trying to sleep outside the common room for her. All of her friends know about this friendship. James actively has a crush on her. Like, yeah, it's obvious they're friends to pretty much everyone. And you might be thinking, this was easy to overlook. James was the guy of the year. So smart, so cool and all. And how could anyone notice Snape's advances when she was happily running around with the future head boy? But that's where you also have to remember that Lily doesn't like James right away either. She refers to him as a toe rag at one point, and it's not until much later that they strike up their romance. How come she married him? Harry asked miserably. She hated him. Nah, she didn't, said Sirius. She started going out with him in 7th year, said Lupin. Once James had deflated his head a bit, said Sirius. But if Dumbledore is Snape's secret keeper, then maybe Sirius and Lupin aren't as thick as we think. Perhaps they had wondered about this, but once the secret was concealed in Dumbledore, they lost access to the information. At that point, it wouldn't matter if they were pressed right up against the window of this secret. They could not come to the correct conclusion. They could not come to the correct conclusion. Hey, Mooney, isn't it so strange how flustered James get whenever Evans is around? You know, he's doing the hair tossling and the snitch thing. Plus, she always hangs out with Snape, and he seems to hate him for seemingly no other reason. Weird. Anyway, let's go jinx some first years, eh? I love it. Should we call Wormtail? I feel like I should say yes, but no. I also love what this says about Dumbledore, that he is as trustworthy as he demands his followers to be. Real leader by example because, like I said, he is tested. The big one is right before he and Harry leave for the cave, and Harry has just learned, first, that Draco was happy about something in the Room of Requirement, and second, that it was Snape who overheard the prophecy and told Voldemort, a wrinkle that Dumbledore was not expecting. Harry is understandably upset and points out, but he's a very good Occlumens, isn't he, sir? And isn't Voldemort convinced that Snape's on his side, even now? Professor, how can you be sure Snape's on our side? Dumbledore did not speak for a moment. He looked as though he was trying to make up his mind about something. At last he said, I am sure. I trust Severus Snape completely. What he's trying to make up his mind about is if he should tell Harry the secret he rightfully deserves to know, which to me proves that he does know the secret. It's a push come to shove moment, and Dumbledore holds strong. He knows he is about to die anyway, and that Snape's role is about to become huge, and that if he loses his trust now, when they are so close, all might be lost. But on the other hand, Harry clearly deserves to know, but he ultimately decides that Snape's love and his trust are more important than Harry's anger. Exactly what every 16-year-old wants to hear, am I right?
Look at me!
But speaking of Dumbledore's death, if he was the secret keeper, then after he dies, should Lupin and Sirius or anyone be able to know the information again? Well, for one, Sirius is dead. Spoilers. So he's out anyway, but you're right. The way it works is that when you die, the only people you told become secret keepers. In this case, though, that would just be Snape, who then oddly becomes his own secret keeper, something that we know again is possible because of Bill at Shell Cottage. But wait, you say, Sirius and even Hagrid were able to show up at the Potters after Voldemort killed them. How did they regain the information? Well, that's a very odd one, because Peter, the secret keeper, is actually still alive, so really they shouldn't be able to show up, except Voldemort's curse and/or Lily's counter charm was so powerful it destroyed the Fidelius Charm, thus allowing the information to flow freely again. Snape having a secret keeper also explains why Voldemort goes on to trust Snape again, even though he knows Snape is the one who asked him to spare Lily, and that he at the very least desired her. Because then, even if he remembered those things, he couldn't come to the correct conclusion that Snape loved Lily. Harry says it's because Voldemort couldn't understand love, which is also true, but think about how dumb it is for Voldemort to trust Snape as his number 2 man. A man whose crush you murdered. A crush who was the mother of your mortal enemy. It's ridiculous. Even for Voldemort. Unless he, Voldemort, lost access to that information. It's not even one of the things he questions him about when he returns, which we know because Snape gives an extensive rundown of everything they talked about when doing the Unbreakable Bond with Bellatrix. But wait, Voldemort does recall the information that Snape desired Lily in the Great Hall, so maybe he actually did know. Ah, yes, but Snape is dead by then, isn't he? So once again, the information is free. Or is it? Because wait, didn't Snape tell Harry before he died? Doesn't that make Harry the secret keeper then? Well, it's hard to say for sure. If giving him the memories constitutes telling him, he certainly gets the information though, and that is Snape's intent. So yes, I am inclined to agree with you that Harry did become the secret keeper before Snape's death, which means we have a problem. Voldemort shouldn't be able to remember that Snape desired Lily, unless Harry himself also managed to die before that moment in the Great Hall, and oh wait! Yeah, he does die. He does do that.
Harry Potter is dead!
In which case, information flow is open again. Hoorah! What's that? Not good enough for you? Because you think that he only technically visited limbo and not death, the secret is still intact? I mean, I doubt you think that. I think we can all agree that Harry died and came back to life. That's sort of like the whole point. The sacrificial protection comes into play and everything. But either way, I've got you covered because you're all too focused on death being the only way information can get to Voldemort. But there is another way. Harry can just tell him the secret. And guess what? Snape's Patronus was a doe, said Harry, the same as my mother's, because he loved her for nearly all his life, from the time they were children. You should have realized, he said, as he saw Voldemort's nostrils flare. He asked you to spare her life, didn't he? And at that moment, Voldemort is in on the secret, and all of his memories come back to him. Boom! It's not that everyone was blind and stupid. It's that Dumbledore was the secret keeper, and people literally couldn't know until Harry finally told them. Boy, howdy, the Fidelius Charm comes with just a myriad of weird little things that you have to account for. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like it and subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any future Harry Potter action from us. If you'd like to see that video about the sorting hat and how the sorting ceremony itself is such a well-kept secret, you can check out this video right over here. But otherwise, until next time, bye! Don't forget to eat cheese. Unless you can't eat dairy.